Does the gentleman yield himself?
As much time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I rise in the strongest possible opposition to this ill-conceived, if it was conceived at all, legislation. I don't know how many of you have ever saw the Peter Pan story, the movie, or even read it. This is a Peter Pan story. You know, they had the imaginary bowls where the bowls that were not imaginary, but they were empty. And they convinced Peter Pan, Robin Williams, to use his imagination. And the bowls will be full of food. And this is what you're doing today, Mr. Chairman, and the people that wrote this bill, who we do not know who did write it. Use your imagination. We're going to have the oil for everything, because this bill produces oil. It produces nothing. This is a Peter Pan story. It's a figment of the imagination. It is a political gimmick. It is a sham on the American people. Shame on this House that the courage wasn't there for the leadership to go on both sides of the aisle, listen to those that have some expertise in this problem we're faced today, the high cost of energy, and work together and pass an energy solution to a problem that produces not only fossil fuels, but all their other forms of fuel, that solves the problems for the commuter that has to go to work. And Mr. and Mrs. Commuter, if you think this bill today came out of this leadership on that side produces one bit of relief to you as you drive to work, don't believe it. Go see Peter Pan. That's all this bill is. It has nothing in there to produce energy. In fact, it probably will drive down the ability to produce energy. It will help foreign countries. I just heard my chairman talk about big oil, how bad big oil is, and put the blame on big oil. Where do you think you're getting your oil today as you put it in your tank? From Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Chavez, foreign countries that have control of us right now. We ought to be talking about that. Forget it talking about big oil. Because this body, and I've said it before on this floor of the House, both sides of the aisle have not seized the ability to solve the energy problem of developing fossil fuels. Coal, there's nothing in this bill about coal and liquefaction or gasification. There's nothing in this bill about nuclear power. There's nothing in this bill that produces any energy. In fact, this bill takes land that's open now and closes it, and takes lands that was closed and opens it, but it happens to be 50 miles offshore. Any oil in between here can't be developed. And by the way, my good friends, if any state contiguous to decides not to have it drilled 50 miles and out, they can say no. And they will say no because there's no revenue sharing in this bill. None. It is probably the best way to call this bill the Venezuela, Russia, and Middle East Oil Production Act, because you're protecting the foreign countries under this legislation. And I don't know why I'm getting worked up about it, because we all know this is a political gimmick. It's never going to go anywhere. It's not going to become law, but it will give some people cover and say, I voted for more drilling, more production. This bill does not do that. It will increase energy cost. And I'm a little concerned on both sides of the aisle again, because oil has dropped down to $93 a barrel today. You know, if that would happen last year, we'd say, my God, the world's coming to an end. Oil went to $93. But it was $145. And we're being lulled into this type of legislation saying we're going to solve the problem, and nothing is occurring to solve the problem of the American consumer. We're right where we were last year, the year before that. And that's wrong. It does leave out ANWR. I wasn't going to bring that up, but the closest, quickest way to produce 1 million barrels a day to the United States was to open ANWR. No, we left that out. Can't happen. 1 million barrels a day for the next maybe 100 years. For the American consumer, every barrel has gone to the United States of America. A little provision here says you can't export any of this oil to overseas. We're not exporting oil. We're consuming it. But we're consuming most of our oil from overseas, paying the foreign countries the oil prices today, because you have not come to this floor. Not one hearing in our committee on this issue. This bill was written in the midnight, I shouldn't say the midnight sun. I would say it was written in the darkness of night. And introduced last night, had the rule last night, 500 pages. I have read it. And it produces nothing. You can get more energy out of this bill, ladies and gentlemen. You take all the copies of the bill and put it in a bonfire. And that is not good for this House or this nation. You had the opportunity. Now, I don't understand really why anybody would support this legislation at all, because we're committing something wrong to the American people. We had a chance. I see people from oil-producing states over on that side. Why did you buy into the concept we wanted to bring a bill to the floor that does nothing but say, I helped develop more oil when it doesn't do it? If you believe that, you would have let us have this bill 2 weeks, 3, 4 weeks ago. But you didn't. Because you know when it finally gets out of the public, they start understanding what's occurring, that the public will understand, yes, it was a sham. And I'm tired of politics on oil in this body. We have a speaker that believes that we have to save the planet because we can't burn any more fossil fuel. If that's the case, then let's admit it. I believe is what she believes. And I think that's sad. I believe we ought to say, okay, we do have to have fossil fuels, and we can develop the other forms of energy, but it takes time. We need that bridge. This bill doesn't do that. So we're going to come back here next year. The public will be hoodwinked. The public will have high prices again. Nothing will be done. If we're really wise, we take this bill today, totally defeat it, send it back, and work across the aisle for the American people. Work across the aisle for a solution so we're no longer have the yoke, not of big oil around our necks, the yoke of the foreign countries that took those billions of dollars, the largest transfer of American wealth in history, occurred because this body didn't act correctly. Did not transfer, did not develop the resources so we wouldn't have to transfer that wealth overseas, and we did it. So we have a responsibility to defeat this legislation. It was conceived in the dark. Who the father is, I do not know. But we do know it's not legitimate. And I reserve the balance of my time.